We oftentimes get so stuck on our business name and our logo and our design for our product, and these things do matter, but what really matters in the success of your business is not any of these things. It's not even having a perfectly performing candle. What matters most is the way that you make your customers feel. That's why they purchase from you over all the other wonderful small businesses out there. It's not even because you have the cleanest candles on the market or because you're using the purest ingredients on the market. It comes down to the way that you make the customer feel when they purchase from you and when they experience your product. Hello everyone, if you're new here, I'm Alan with 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏, and this channel is all about sharing the joy of candle making. Now today is a sip and chat that I've gotten a lot of requests for, and it is how candle makers go about naming their candles, like as in the title of the candle, and also how you list your scent notes. And for this episode of Sip and Chat, I'm just having a regular espresso with, it's kind of like an Americano. Well, it's more like an iced latte, but it's in a cup that's not supposed to be for iced drinks. So breaking the rules a little bit there, but hey. The very first thing that I will do is make a test candle. So once I found a fragrance that I really like, I will make a full-size tester exactly how I would have my customer burn it and get the wicking exactly where I want. So once I have a good performing candle, the next step is to just burn that candle around my house and just see how it makes me feel. See what type of aesthetic I'm feeling personally when I'm burning that candle. And I will usually do this without any, I was gonna say like ulterior motives, right? I try to allow a lot of extra time so I can do it at my own leisure and not feel pressured to put words to what I'm smelling. Just kind of experience the candle. I know this may sound a bit funny, but what we're actually doing when we're selling products is we're not really selling a product. We are selling a feeling. So you're evoking both the aroma in terms of the scent notes with the top note, middle notes, and base notes. So when you're thinking about the top notes, you're gonna ask yourself, what do you smell initially when you smell that scent? They're oftentimes gonna be citruses, like very bright notes. They're also the most fleeting notes. So different citruses, different types of ozone characters, like breezy characters, those are all typically going to be top notes. Sometimes even fruitier notes, depending on the fruit. And then heart notes are gonna be the warm, kind of like the heart of the scent, the main character that you smell when you smell that fragrance. So for example, let's take pumpkin souffle. The top notes to that one might be, more than likely, different spices. And you're not wrong if your scent description doesn't match your supplier. Again, it's all kind of subjective. So the top notes could be cinnamon, for example, and clove. And the heart of that fragrance, the main body, could be pumpkin bread, or it could be, for example, cardamom butter. But you're gonna be thinking of things that are more rich and decadent that really describe what they're getting the most of for the longest. And then the base is kind of what's embracing the top and middle notes. The base notes will actually linger the very longest, but they'll oftentimes, you might not even be able to smell them. They'll just kind of set the overall mood for the whole fragrance. Also, try to be as concrete as possible. So instead of using a bunch of abstract words like, oh, the scent brings you love and joy and it feels like the scent of freedom or whatever, interweave the scent notes into how you're describing the fragrance and what it is going to do for the person purchasing your candle. But while you're doing all this, you're keeping your general theme in mind and you're being as descriptive as possible. Let's just take this candle that I'm burning right now. This one, I don't know if you can see it back there, but it actually uses a fragrance that is called I was gonna say the lounge. It's not called the lounge. It's called the Urban Luxe. And that particular fragrance, I feel like, is really well named. A lot of times when we purchase from suppliers, the fragrances, they may or may not actually go with the scent very well for how you're gonna brand them. I always say this on the channel, but the way that your supplier is selling the candle is really just kind of like a springboard for your own branding. Remember back in grade school when you were given different prompts, like in writing class, when you're writing a certain type of creative paper and they give you like sort of a general just a general prompt, like a general brainstorm. That's all the name is that the supplier has. And so I will oftentimes, if I feel like it's a good match, find something that is along the same lines, but I will try to change the name. I historically have, I would say, less than 20% of the time kept the name the same as the supplier is selling the candle as. Now, you can do that. Technically, a lot of the names are trademarked, and I put it in air quotes because it's more of an implied trademark, right? Because it's the property of the fragrance supplier, whoever's selling us the fragrance. But they're not really gonna usually come after us. Now, don't hold me to that. I'm not an attorney, but normally suppliers are not gonna come after you if you name your fragrance the same thing as the candle. But it oftentimes won't really hurt you, won't really help you as a small business owner, because when your customer tries to find that candle and they type in the name on Google, what they're gonna actually end up getting is the supplier's website and not your candle. So if you have a very unique name, and I know the market's really saturated with different names, but the more unique you can be, the better, I would say. Another thing that I will do is, if I have people over, I will specifically try to have people over at least a few times when I'm burning this particular candle that I already know I really like the fragrance of, right? That I'm planning on using, I just don't know how I'm gonna use it yet. And I will see, without giving them anything to kind of suggest what they should be smelling, I'll just ask them what they smell. And what is the aesthetic? Like, what is the vibe that they're getting from this candle? Is it making them feel like refreshed? Is it cozy? Is it kind of moody? So you're kind of getting a general character, not just from yourself, but from an audience. And it could be friends, family, really anyone who, they don't have to have any background in candle making. Actually, I would say it's better to have a good number of your audience that you're asking these things to not have that much experience in candle making, because the people that you're selling to really won't oftentimes be candle makers themselves. And you want to make sure that it's something that reaches them and that isn't so complex that it only reaches other makers, for example. Oh, hey, I didn't see you over there. Welcome to the show. So how does this candle make you feel? Like, when you smell it, what's the general vibe? Getting kind of a shoe leather vibe. So I'm already using the overall feeling, and then I'm going to the supplier's website or looking at my fragrance oil bottle to see what the fragrance oil is named and what the scent description is. And that's where I'm kind of getting some keywords. Now, I say keywords because I would say it's important to stick to what the keywords are, the overall theme of the keywords of the scent. But what ultimately matters the most, in my opinion, is your raw abstraction from what you're getting. Because if you are passionate about making candles and you genuinely love what you do, you probably have a pretty good nose. So when you're smelling this candle, what is it? What are the different individual notes that you're getting? And the way that you describe the supplier's notes can differ quite a bit from what the supplier's notes are. There's no one really mandating what you put on your candle in terms of the scent notes or on your website or wherever you're describing the scent. I would encourage you, if you're selling online and you feel like the way that the supplier is describing the scent in terms of the scent notes, the key words like orange, lime, citrus, or whatever the scent notes are that they're putting, not the description, but the keywords, like the individual notes, I would encourage you to not stray too far away from those, but don't feel like you have to list all of them. For example, if you're getting something that really doesn't smell like what the supplier's notes are when you're burning that candle, then what matters most, in my opinion, again, is your abstraction, your opinion of what this candle smells like. Because I think, subconsciously, if you are in line with your brand, your opinion is already going to have the voice of your brand. And your customers are purchasing from you, or if you're just starting a business, they will purchase from you because, again, they're purchasing a feeling, an experience. And all of that comes down to not just a well-performing candle, but the voice of your brand. How are they going to feel when they burn this product, when they experience this product? What's it going to do for them? Also, try to be as concrete as possible. So instead of using a bunch of abstract words like, oh, the scent brings you love and joy and it feels like the scent of freedom or whatever, or this, whatever. Interweave the scent notes into how you're describing the fragrance and what it is going to do for the person purchasing your candle. And also, try to avoid using linking verbs. And linking verbs, I just mean like is, to be. Action verbs are going to bring your fragrance descriptions to life, whereas linking verbs are more passive. So linking verbs is like when you're describing a scent and using the word is or are. This fragrance is grounding. Instead of saying is grounding, you could say this fragrance grounds you in sandalwood. So if your scent is, for example, a fresh and clean type of a vibe, some examples of action verbs could be awakens, uplifts, floats, drifts. Or for warm and spicy scents, it could be clings, caresses, radiates, envelops. It really just depends on what the aesthetic is that you're trying to capture. Or for earthy scents, you could use grounds you in sandalwood, grounds you in patchouli, like we said, or rooted in blah, blah, blah. Blooms with neroli and jasmine, echoes, hints of gardenia. And then like for dark, smoky, moody scents, you could use charred wood coils with amber, for example. Haunts or creeps, simmers, pierces, seduces. All of these things are very, very pointed in how they are describing your scent. I encourage you to use these action verbs because they will grab your viewers, like pick them up right off their feet and bring them right into the scent, and rather than just kind of being more like a bystander. I think describing fragrance can be like poetry. And what's often going to connect with your customers the most is your raw voice, your experience with that fragrance. Because you subconsciously are what connects with your customers already. They're attracted to you, to your voice, to the way that you describe things, because it connects with them. And that's why they keep coming back to purchase more candles. And if you haven't started selling candles yet, keep in mind that that is where your audience is going to be focused. If you really feel like you're at a roadblock, I would recommend using Chat GPT. So yes, this is an AI program, and I know that they kind of have a bad taste for a lot of people, but I will say it's also free. You can do it a certain number of times per day where you can enter things and have it provide answers to you, for lack of a better word, for free every single day. So I think it's like maybe less than $5 or something, or you can pay like $20 a month to get a subscription plan. I don't recommend doing this though to start out. I would say, so do what I mentioned, and then if you're really feeling like you're at a roadblock, then use Chat GPT. Ask Chat GPT, what are the scent notes that describe, or give me a unique description to describe a candle with these scent notes that fits into, for example, an apothecary type of a theme, or a spa type of a theme, or my brand's theme. And then Chat GPT will ask you more about your brand, and then you can tell it more, and then it will provide some different responses for you to kind of get you out of that roadblock. But I will say that if you do this for all of your stuff and you just start using only Chat GPT, people can tell. Like when you read your descriptions, I would say Chat GPT has its own voice, and you want to make sure that your brand is infused with your voice, not the voice of some AI app. Anyways, I hope that this was helpful in getting you guys started, but this is kind of my general process. And oftentimes, if a scent doesn't do well, if I do all this, because you don't want to stay stuck on this for too long, right? Ultimately, you want this to get in the hands of your customers. Once you have a good performing candle, you want your customers to start burning it and seeing how it meshes for them. And if something isn't a good fit, where you feel like this fragrance is really high quality, or it has a ton of good reviews, and I'm making a really nice candle, like the candle's well performing overall, and they're purchasing, say, other scents from you, but just not this one. It could be that the scent just isn't targeted to your market, or it could be that it is, but it's not being branded very well. Let me give you an example. So I used to sell Candle Science's Pumpkin Souffle fragrance, and if you guys know anything about me, you know I don't even like that fragrance, but I've sold it for like 4 or 5 years. It's been one of my most popular, well, my single most popular fall candle, and I actually started out selling it as Pumpkin Souffle, and it didn't do very well. That was the name that Candle Science gave it, and I thought, yeah, it smells exactly like that, I would say. And so what ended up happening was I knew in my head that this scent was really capable, I would say, of doing well, of selling well, right? I knew I had a good performing candle. It was just, I felt like possibly the way that I was branding it. So I ended up changing the name to Pumpkin Bread, changing the scent notes actually too. So there's a lot of leeway that you have in these scent notes, and that's what I want to encourage you guys with, is we oftentimes feel like we have to be literalistic with them. Scent notes are like painting a picture of something. They're very watercolor-like. I want you to think of them like paint. And I want you to think of the way that you're describing your fragrances as painting a picture. And there's so much freedom when you do that. And I'm not encouraging you to totally describe something wrong though, right? Because there's nothing against doing that either. You can tell someone, oh yeah, this candle is gonna smell like the ocean, and then they get it and it smells like an apple pie, and they're not probably gonna buy that candle again. Not because it's bad, but because it's not what they expected. So you wanna be within the realm of what they would expect, right? And that's why you're starting off by seeing how this candle makes you feel. What are the overall vibes of this candle? How's your supplier describing this fragrance? And then do you think that's a good match with how you're feeling about it? If so, you're gonna go with something that's kind of synonymous to what they're naming it, but not the exact same thing, because again, you don't wanna let that SEO mess up your candle sale. And then you are getting a tester audience to smell this candle, and just, again, it could be as simple as anyone that you have over and give you their opinion, and you're putting all that together and fitting it in with the collection that you're selling it at. Anyways, thumbs up this video if you found it helpful, and let me know if there's anything else related to this topic that I could provide some information on. Leave me a comment, and I really want to encourage you all to enjoy this process, because it can be like poetry. It can be like painting a watercolor picture. And by the way, I'm a terrible painter. My sister's really good at it though. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. I'm sending all of you peace, love, and light, and I'm wishing all of you happy candle making. So when my creative writing teacher once told me, when you eat an apple pie, how could you describe that? You know, you could describe it as I'm eating dessert. More specific would be pie. More specific than that would be apple pie. Apple pie with a flaky crust and warm buttered sugar. Well, there's not really warm buttered sugar on apple pie. An apple pie with Breyer's vanilla ice cream and sharp cheddar cheese. Sharp cheddar cheese?